You remember some things that happened in your childhood?
Yeah.
You remember things that happened to Eve White?
Mm-hmm.
I see.
I know everything that happened to us.
But you don't seem to have as much educational background. How is that?
I guess I just wasn't interested.
Why?
In getting an education, you have to study.
Well, somebody had to study.
Not really, no. She didn't have to.
Well, she did in order to get an education, didn't she?
She wanted one, though, but I didn't.
Why didn't you learn as she went along?
I guess I just didn't pay any attention.
Well, here we are, the season 1 finale. And let me welcome you to The Psychologist is In.
What can I do, Foster?
Mix. Mix, Finn, mix.
Be silent.
This week is selected by my brother JR, and the case that I will be evaluating is Incident in a Ghostland. Now, this was a tough watch the first time that I watched it, so at least this time around, going in it to evaluate, I knew what to expect. The movie is directed by Pascal Laugier. He directed one that I have yet to see and I plan on seeing, which is Martyrs. The movie stars Crystal Reed as adult Beth, also Emilia Jones as young Beth, Anastasia Phillips as adult Vera, Taylor Hickson as young Vera, and Mylene Farmer as Colleen. So, what do our characters deal with? We have dissociative identity disorder. I'm going to be using DID, depersonalization derealization disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, disorientation, hallucinations, and agoraphobia. This movie shows you the power that the mind has when it is experiencing traumatic events. Some individuals, in moments where they're experiencing trauma, can disassociate from the moment as a way of protecting themselves. In situations of severe trauma, a person can develop DPDR disorder or in some cases DID. For this movie, we have 4 individuals at different ages experiencing different disorders. The younger ones have their own disorders and the older ones have their own. This movie can be visceral at times, and it is because of this, it shows you why the characters suffer from this condition. To be honest, when I first watched this movie, I was kind of haunted for days from it. At the start of the movie, we get a hint. Vera is aware that Beth is creating this whole other world. She ended up reading an article that Beth was pretending to be a famous artist as she was answering the interviewer. Beth also suffered from panic attacks, as you saw that when she saw the sight of blood, which may indicate there's some other events that happened to her for her to have such a reaction to blood. Colleen, young Beth, and young Vera are victims of a home invasion. They are attacked by killers who are killing the parents and leaving the daughters alive. During this attack, Vera is raped. Beth ends up watching as Colleen first fights off the first killer, and then Colleen goes and helps out Vera. During the attacks, Beth kind of recedes into herself, especially when they needed her the most. Years later after this attack, Beth, now an adult, has written a book called Incident in a Ghostland. This may be her way to getting past the trauma of the night's events. Some psychologists will suggest for you to keep a diary or to write down the things that are upsetting you to help you get past this moment. So this book could have been a way for her to heal from the attacks. Vera ends up calling Beth and asking her to come back. When she gets back there, Vera, down in the basement, screaming. She suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder from the rape. Colleen tells Beth that Vera doesn't want to leave the house, that they can never move because she doesn't want to leave. Vera has developed agoraphobia and the fear of what else is out there, so she's protected herself in the house. Now, Beth herself, when she returns home, she starts to develop hallucination and disorientation. The trauma of that night, as well as being back home, has triggered her disorder. Vera tells her that they punish her when she is not there. This was also another hint given to you that Beth had DPDR. The twist, unfortunately, I'm going to have to reveal. I know I don't like to reveal them, but it is important for this evaluation. The things that had happened years later, the book, were all a product of Beth's mind. Beth suffered from DPDR, and due to the severe trauma that they were both suffering, for Beth to deal with, she created this whole entire life in her head in order to escape that situation. Adult Beth sees her face all bruised and battered, and she goes to confront Vera and ask her why she did this to her. Vera then tells her she needs to come back to reality and to stop running away. She starts yelling at her, they start fighting. Adult Beth then starts to remember what had really happened. Not gonna reveal all that stuff, but she is brought back to reality. Beth had escaped into a world that she created in her head to escape her actuality. Some individuals who suffer from DPDR can escape into their minds for good periods of times. There are some people who can go away for hours. There are others that can go away for a week. It all tends to depend on the severity of the trauma, length the person will disappear in their head. So, watch this movie. All right, I'm not going to talk any more about it because it is as intense as I'm kind of trying to describe it. As I said, it haunted me. And just remember, I'm only giving you guys the psychological aspects of the film. Again, be forewarned, it is very visceral. So what is the diagnosis? This film is psychological. However, the horror in this movie is the events that these two girls go through that creates all these disorders. Thank you for checking out my episodes. I hope that you have enjoyed them. Look out for my outro episode next week. I'm going to tell you guys what to expect of season 2. And until then, make sure you hit subscribe and follow us so you get those updates. I'll see you one more time after this. See you next week.